Sometimes the world looks like you ain't ever seen it before. Stuck behind never-ending windows, all you need is a door. Searching for something to put a smile back on your face. Just remember, in unusual times, it can come from an unusual place. You need a partner for the ride, 'cause everybody needs a Clyde. So set your worries to the side. Just ask, say the word and I'll be there. Just ask, you know the greatest things in life all come in a pair. They say hindsight's 20/20, but that ain't far enough behind me. So if you want the sweetest honey, I think hindsight's 1990. There's no need to pretend I got a hand I can lend, 'cause when you really need a friend, just ask. Shit 90 shows taught me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.
Are you ready to slay another day? So are we. Welcome back to Shit 90 Shows Taught Me. I'm Jess Sterling here with my co-host, Sara Fergenson. Sara, how are you?
Jess, I am so good. I have my date to the Sadie Hawkins dance on lock. I did not get rejected. I do not have to shoot anybody at the Sadie Hawkins dance. I am so glad, so thankful, so mindful, so demure.
You're dating the podcast.
I don't care. I don't care.
So we do have a special guest with us this week. Someone who I'm sure is very glad that his spaghetti did not turn into snakes today. AJ, how are you?
I'm just delighted that somebody asked me to a dance. I mean, otherwise I would not be here. So appreciate it, ladies.
Yes, he is our date
people
to the Buffy
asking
podcast.
To the Sadie Hawkins podcast.
Such a hot commodity.
Such a hot commodity. I really enjoyed this episode. I know that I think we were a little grumpy about last week. I don't really remember. I don't even remember it. It just
we
fell
were
off
grumpy
my
about
head.
last week because it felt like a season 1 episode slotted into season 2, and we had like little children in a hospital again. Been there, done that.
Killed by death.
Yeah, this one I agree with you, Sara. I Only Have Eyes for You, season 2, episode 19. I really enjoyed this episode. I felt like obviously we're setting up some of the end game stuff for season 2. And some of it was like so scary and off-putting. Like spaghetti snakes seemed so horrifying.
Spaghetti snakes.
Yes. Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode though. I felt like we're progressing the Angelus Buffy stuff, and like finally Spike is walking again by the end of this episode. Took him long enough.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it, but I believe that Spike has been on the move for much longer than we anticipated, which we should have guessed. But before we get into the episode, AJ, I know the answer to this question, but have you Buffy'd before?
Have I Buffy'd before? Well, since my lovely wife Sarah, no relation, of course, and I named our first son and only child, Xander. I mean, yes.
Yikes for us, specifically me.
Well, look, we like the name. Had he been a girl, then we would have gone with Dylan Cordelia as the middle name. But so yeah, we were big Buffy fans. I think I had just met my wife after season 1, like between season 1 and season 2. So we were watching these episodes together on a first run.
Oh, that's so fun.
Love the Buffy, love the Angel, love the Joss verse. Don't necessarily love the Joss, but you can separate the art from the artist, kind of thing. We adored the show. It was must see TV, and this particular episode, which is one of my favorites from season 2. Certainly, I think certainly home stretch. Yes, we had to wait 6 weeks for this episode when it originally aired.
Why? There were 6 weeks between the 2 episodes?
Yes. So you had to sit with last week's disaster of an episode with the all right, the Kinder Kugel, whatever his name was, like the fine, it was okay, but 6 weeks you had to wait because back then your television had this thing called reruns.
What's that? Don't know her.
But so they had planned to rerun the 3 previous episodes again, and then there were school shootings. And so they couldn't air this for 3 weeks because there were like 3 consecutive weeks of school shootings.
Wow.
And so, and obviously the topic of this one is a shooting at a school. So they kind of had to be sensitive to that. So literally 6 weeks of waiting on this episode. And the fact that it's a good episode, but after 6 weeks, it's a great episode. It builds so much momentum. And what's really frustrating is that it builds such momentum. And I apologize. I'm not going to be here next week, but you will have to be for an awful episode.
We've been warned.
And the thing is, it's not even so much that it's probably a season 1 that they repurposed for season 2 kind of thing that they had to do, but also because, again, we have all this momentum with what happens in the last 2-3 scenes of this one, and then next week it's like, yeah, but you're not getting any of that.
No, so AJ, if you have not heard, and to our listeners who have not heard, we know that next week is going to be a shit show. So we are bringing it back, and I am dedicated to my people that I will be the biggest Go Fish stan that ever fished. And I will fully play into the bit. I have the capacity to do it for an hour and a half. Jessica, I don't know.
I don't think I have the capacity. I don't think I have the capacity because I've been warned that it's a really bad Xander episode.
No, look, here's the thing. It's not an awful episode. Even bad episodes of Buffy are pretty much better than most television at the time. It's just, again, it's the momentum of the thing, and it's just like it's plucked from somewhere else. But 2 things that are going to make it really easier for you. It's still funny in parts. There's still that traditional Buffy humor, but also Wentworth Miller is the guest star, and he's a pretty good actor. So if you don't know him from Prison Break and like things down the road that don't exist yet at this time.
Well, we'll see how we feel next week, but for this week, let's talk I Only Have Eyes for You, because like you said, AJ, if we were to like trim the fat, so to say, of this season, I feel like we would have skipped last week's episode and gone from like passion right into I Only Have Eyes for You, right into the finale after this. And it would have felt great because we have Spike and Drew are back and they have stuff going on. And obviously, like, this is a huge Bangel episode for fans of Bangel. So let's talk about this. And Sarah, the thing that I like about this is obviously we love our moody teen shows, like love a moody teenager.
Yeah.
I feel like Buffy is like super justified in her moodiness. Like her boyfriend is like turned into a serial killer. So she's having a rough time.
Yeah, life is rough in the high school streets. It's really tough when it's bad enough when your boyfriend, well, it's bad enough if you don't have a boyfriend when there's a Sadie Hawkins dance going on. It's even worse if you have an older boyfriend that is not in the high school streets. It's even worse if you're going through a breakup and you really don't have anybody to ask. So the Sadie Hawkins dance is coming up. You and I have spoken about Sadie Hawkins dances a few times on this podcast because the 90s loved a Sadie Hawkins dance. Now, you and I have never freaking encountered a Sadie Hawkins dance. I don't think. I mean, the school might have thrown them, but I definitely did not participate.
Same. Yeah.
AJ, have you Sadie Hawkins?
No, I have not. I mean, this is a thing that arose out of the Little Abner comic strip back in like the 30s and 40s. There was an ugly female named Sadie Hawkins, and they felt bad for her never being asked to the dance. So the whole town got together and created a dance where she got to ask somebody to go to the dance. And that was considered progressive in the 30s and 40s. So we have come a long way, I think, from those days. But yeah, big in the 50s, I think. And then, every couple like decades, I think a school will go, hey, there's this thing called a Sadie Hawkins dance. Have you heard of it? And they'll throw it, I think. But no, I've never experienced it in the real world. Although it was kind of big on TV in the 90s.
Every show we've covered has Sadie Hawkins. Now it feels very outdated because it's like anybody can ask anybody to a dance. Like it's silly to like put like, oh, it has to be this gender, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is that like Buffy, again, like if she did have a boyfriend to ask, well, he's out of high school anyway, and he's like 200 years old, and he's also now a serial killer, and they're broken up. And so her move is to put on her gold pants, go to the bronze, and look a little broody, standing in the corner. She gets approached by this guy named Ben, and he's like, oh, we had algebra together 2 years ago. And by the way, don't you want to ask me to the dance? And I'm like, do you understand how Sadie Hawkins dance work, Ben? This isn't how they work. You're supposed to wait to be asked. You basically just asked her to the dance. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, shoot your shot. Yeah. You
exactly. I mean, you're talking about Buffy is kind of an outsider at the school. She's not exactly in the Cordelia group of the popular plastics, as it were. So yeah, why not? Why not shoot your shot? I get it.
Jess, have you Googled the Sadie Hawkins for the Little Abner comic?
I have not. No.
Sadie Hawkins is pretty but ugly. I thought that AJ.
What did they do to her? Hold on.
I thought AJ was just being fresh, but no.
That was the definition of the character. Unfortunately,
truly the ugliest bean I've ever seen.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the listeners, basically she has like jet black hair and like those bangs where it's like, oops, I cut my bangs too short by accident, like they're above my eyebrows. Her hair is like looks like kind of like a hurricane. Like it's kind of like a typhoon, like a what's it called? Like a twister?
Yeah, a twister. Yeah. She has spermy eyebrows.
Very spermy eyebrows, like a very bulbous nose, rosacea, buck teeth,
man arms.
Just not great overall.
I think kind of a little bit of an Adam's apple as well. It's not great for Sadie Hawkins.
It's not a good look. Yeah, poor Sadie Hawkins.
At least Sadie Hawkins got to go to the dance, I think. I think that's the moral of the story.
But you know who's not going to the dance is Buffy, because she's sad and depressed and she doesn't want to go to the dance. And so she's about to leave the bronze because this is her routine is let me go check on Giles in the library, see if I need to do any slaying, go to bed, sulk a little bit. And as she's heading in down the hall in the school, there's this couple having this huge argument and it's like very emotional. And then the guy just whips out a gun and is about to shoot the girl when Buffy like tackles him. We have the janitor coming in. And Sarah, I don't know about you, but every time that I see a character or an actor that I recognize, immediately I'm suspicious of like, okay, they're the baddie. Now we're settled. I know what's happening.
Yeah, you're very trained to think that.
I mean, I'm a trained television watcher at this point.
I didn't recognize anybody of significance. Who did you see? Who did you spot?
I'm curious to know, AJ, if you recognized the janitor, because he looked familiar to me.
Having not watched the shows that I know, I know who he is and what he's been on. I had never watched any of those shows, so I can't say I recognize him other than after the fact going, oh, yeah, he's been in those things. So you go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's after the fact. And the thing is I couldn't even tell you what he's been in. I just know that I've seen his face. And that's where I was like suspicious immediately.
I think he's in Deadwood.
That's it. That is it. Yeah. Thank you, AJ. Yes, he's in Deadwood. And so immediately I'm like, oh, the janitor is involved somehow because he gets involved in like the scrape, the scuffle. But the weird thing here, Sarah, is that like as soon as they drop the gun, it like disappears.
Yeah.
And the boyfriend is like confused. Like he has no idea what even happened.
Yeah. So it's a possession, we soon learn. And by the way, that is twice that you assumed that the famous person was involved and twice you were wrong. So maybe you should get untrained.
I really need to untrain my brain.
You need to untrain your brain.
Well, and it's also because this like AJ's point, this is a 90s show. So a lot of times the people that were like guesting in these small roles, they weren't big actors at the time. Yeah. So,
So we quickly learn that this is a possession of what they're calling a poltergeist, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The only poltergeist that I know is Peeves. That's the only poltergeist that I know besides poltergeist.
Casper doesn't count? Does
I
Casper
don't think
count?
Casper's just a ghost. He's a friendly
Okay.
ghost.
He's not friendly. He's too friendly.
I think Casper's brothers were poltergeists, and he was
Yeah.
the friendly
Oh,
one.
yes.
By contrast,
Yeah.
neither of you have seen the movie Poltergeist?
No.
Probably a long time ago, but we're all
I mean, this is a 1982 release,
Yeah.
so but
we're scaredy
yeah.
cats a little bit, so we don't totally watch.
Well,
So
there's a tribute to that movie in there's a
Oh, that's fun.
okay.
There's also,
So AJ,
there's some movie stuff.
are poltergeists just ghosts that are assholes?
You know, here's the thing. In the Buffyverse, listen to what they tell you are the rules, because they're good at changing the rules. Every vampire show has their own rules. Every criminal show has their own rules. So for the poltergeists, I think, and ghosts in general, I think they have their own rules. I mean, we did meet a ghost in season 1, with the girl who kind of vanished into nothingness and disappeared, which great metaphor for high school. I think it's why the show works on so many levels. But poltergeist, generally speaking, is a nuisance ghost, one who likes to play pranks. The angry poltergeists generally are the ones who had some unresolved business and they're stuck here in this location and they don't know how to solve it, and they just lash out at the world.
Yeah.
So
and that is definitely, I think, what this guy falls into, that category.
Column A, a little column B, because is he, I mean, I really did not understand. I watched this episode twice. Is he responsible for the snakes, or is this a bigger issue, the snakes? I don't think he's involved in the snakes.
Oh, I thought he was involved in the snakes.
I think it's a combination of the poltergeist, and we'll learn what his motivation is for being here. But I think the lashing out takes on various forms. But also, I mean, we're tapping into the whole energy of the Hellmouth. So there could be residual stuff that he's responsible for kind of being the battery, but maybe not the one pressing the buttons on the remote control.
Got it.
That tracks. And so here he comes. He's back in the show. Principal Snyder, someone I've got my eyes firmly on all season long.
Yeah.
And he immediately, because he's a freaking jerk, he's like, oh, Buffy, you were there. You must be involved because you're bad. And I know it. And he's constantly blaming Buffy when he knows more than he's letting on. And so he's like, no, you need to stay here. And I knew as soon as I saw that book drop to the ground, Sarah, I was like, that's a yearbook and there's something in there. And I know you, Sarah, like if there was a poltergeist near you trying to send you messages, you would have taken that yearbook and been like, what do I need to know in this book?
Well, I actually love yearbooks. I've mentioned this before, but I really can get myself very involved in a yearbook, especially if I don't know these people. I've multiple times come across yearbooks from I love looking at yearbooks from the 70s or the 60s, yesteryear. And I can just really dig in deep. And because it's so interesting because of the fashion and just everybody's name. It's just, I am fascinated by it. So if I saw an old crusty yearbook drop on the grounds, I would be very, very enveloped in all of it. I love yearbooks.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that this episode is just a couple of years after My So-Called Life aired, and they also had a kind of episode where Claire Danes' character Angela was flashing back to a dance from the 50s and was visited by ghosts, kind of thing. Not poltergeist and an angry storyline, but a kind of very similar storyline. So to me, it's just wait a second, I've seen this before. I mean, their spin on it is great and different, but it another trope was that was on television all the time in the 90s was, hey, a flashback where our characters play versions of people from the 50s.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happened in Boy Meets World.
90210 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so yeah, she just picks the book back up and sets it on the shelf. She walks away, and we have to talk about Willow being a teacher. In what world? What are we doing? She's a child.
So yeah, they have not hired a new computer teacher to take over for the dearly departed Miss Calendar. So Willow is fully in. At least, I mean, the school's not paying her. At least give her some college credit.
What parent is going to be like, yes, let's have this 16-year-old, like, get a substitute teacher that can follow a lesson plan. This is ridiculous, AJ. This is ridiculous.
Well, yes. On the one hand, it's ridiculous. On the other hand, this is also a school that had a career fair where she was deemed to be like super uber genius. And so are you going to get someone more qualified? Probably not. And come on, is Principal Snyder really going to shell out for the extra salary when he doesn't have to? Of course he isn't.
Yeah, he hates children.
Is there a possibility that is getting around to, I don't know, the neighboring towns that Hellmouth is not a safe place to teach? So there are not teachers trying to apply to be a teacher at Hellmouth, because plenty of the teachers have died. Plenty of the students have died.
Principal, yeah, a lot of people have died. I think that makes a ton of sense to me, that they're like actually having trouble, especially because we get another scene later with like the principal and is it some government official guy? And he's like, you know the deal, we put you in charge because you could spin this as like something weird, oh, the pipes are acting up again, whatever, snakes are just coming out of the toilets, who knows? That would make sense. But Sarah, I just have to say, I'm getting more and more excited because Willow has been delving a little bit into the techno-paganism.
Yes.
And I'm like, witchy Willow, yes, come on, let it happen.
Clearly it's on the horizon. I mean, AJ, there was a good point that you made about like Buffy makes their own rules, because like it's like in this universe, anybody can do magic, and it's just not something that I'm used to. It typically is like a natural ability, something that you're born with or something that comes around when you're like, I don't know, 11 years old, something along those lines. So it's just weird to me that like anybody can like pick up a spell book and become a witch.
Yeah, I think, and it's not a spoiler to say that obviously the subject's already been addressed. Any subject that's brought up on the show, this show is great at having a memory and nothing gets dropped. There are at least 3 things that happened in this episode that I know where they're hinting to and how long it's going to take for them to pay off. And on a first watch, you wouldn't know that, but you need to watch every episode with an eye towards that could be something. Because I will say, by the time we get to season 4 and 5, there are certain things that the writing staff on this show pull from, and when you go back and go, you pull that? I mean, it's awesome that it's there on the previous watch, but sometimes it's just the minutest line delivery or the smallest little thing in the background. And like, yeah, they're going to pull from everything. This show does a great job of nothing's there without a reason.
Yeah.
And even if it's there without a reason when they first write it, they consider it for possibly being a reason. And that's why that's why I love this show. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a smart show. Obviously, everybody can benefit from like a rewatch, because then you can pick up on these little clues. We are not catching on to this. I guess we just have to trust the process. We're used to shows that treat their watchers like freaking morons. So that's what I'm used to. And okay. All right. So yeah, Willow is techno-pagan.
It definitely seems like she's gonna get a little witchier, especially because they like cast a spell later in the episode that she's involved in.
I loved the spell. The spell was very The Craft or like Coven vibes, where we are in different points and we are doing a chant that we had to repeat. And the spell was a lot of fun, especially seeing, because they had a line and then seeing each character say that line, but in a different way. Like Cordelia's like, I totally like whatever the line was. I forget. I'm not a witch, but
yeah. And obviously we're keeping Willow in the classroom. She's probably going to be the one to end up finding the floppy disk that Miss Calendar left behind. But to absolutely no one's surprise, Miss Calendar was a crystal girly. And she has a rose quartz crystal that Willow hands over to Giles. She says, "Oh, I found this in her drawer. It has healing powers." again, to AJ's point about them dropping little clues, I don't know if this will come into play. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes into play in some way. Maybe Miss Calendar cast a spell on it and it like actually does have healing properties that will save Giles or someone else's life. You know, it wouldn't surprise me to have Miss Calendar live on like in memoriam in that particular way. And I also love this. Like AJ, I really love Willow and Giles' relationship. I think it's like, I know we get a lot of like mentor mentee and a lot of like obviously substitute father stuff between Buffy and Giles, but I absolutely adore Willow and Giles whenever they interact.
I just think there's between the core characters on the show, everyone's got a relationship, and they explore all the relationships over the course of the show, and there's nuance in all of them, and there's just differences, and the fact that Willow is now replacing Jenny on the staff, and she's the one to comfort Giles, it works. It just works that that's something that Jenny would have said. That's something that Jenny would have done for him.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it's wildly inappropriate. And no, I can rest assured nothing happens romantically between the two of them. But it is kind of like, it just makes sense for her in this moment to think to herself, what would Jenny do? And I want to be the person to do that and help Giles out. And he accepts it as that. So it's just a chef's kiss of a relationship. It shows about relationships, and if there were no relationships, the writing wouldn't work nearly as well.
Mm-hmm. So we move to Buffy sitting in class, and she almost like has a weird like flashbacky thing where it's very obvious she's not in the present time, and she sees a relationship between a student and a teacher, and like they're obviously romantically involved. And Sarah, I have to ask you if you recognized the guy in this. Did you recognize this guest star?
No.
I wouldn't expect you to. AJ, I'm a little curious to know if you recognized him, because I want to know if you've seen the specific thing that I've seen him in.
Well, I mean, he's the Flash to me. Like, like he plays the
that's
Flash
not what I know.
in the Marvel. Like that's what I know him from. I don't know where you know him from. I know the teacher as well, and I'd love to talk about her, but first, let's deal with.
Yeah, she looked familiar to me, but in the same way the janitor was, where I didn't know where I knew her from. But I knew the guy from the flashback because he was in the one season hit whodunit murder mystery show Harper's Island,
yes,
which I absolutely adore. His name is Henry in Harper's Island. If you haven't watched Harper's Island, first of all, go watch it. Second of all, go listen to me on the weekend program over on RHAP talk about it, because I adore Harper's Island and he was in it. But yeah, AJ, tell me where we recognize this woman from, because she looked familiar to me.
So this is Meredith Salinger. And he spelled her name wrong in the credits, which is really weird. But Meredith Salinger, she is currently married to Patton Oswalt. She is his second wife. His first wife passed away. True crime writer, Michelle McNamara. But yeah. Meredith Salinger, in addition to being Natty Gann from The Adventures of Natty Gann, oldie-timey, I'm old, okay, people, I'm old. But this was a classic Disney-type adventures of a young girl coming of age story, kind of thing, Natty Gann. But she was also in a body swap movie called Dream a Little Dream with the two Coreys, and Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and so the fact they have a person who was one of her teenage roles was being in a body swap movie to now be in this body swap storyline. It's just a brilliant bit of casting there.
Wow. Okay. Yes. So she looked, and I think it's Patton Oswalt. I think that is where I know her from, being married to him, because she did look familiar to me. When Buffy kind of snaps out of it and is back in modern time in the class, the teacher had been writing in chalk on the chalkboard in chalk, and instead of writing whatever he intended to write, he wrote, "Don't walk away from me, bitch."
Ooh.
Just like, wow, okay. And
things escalated around here.
Yeah. So everyone
has no recollection of doing that either.
Yet again, right?
Possession by the poltergeist.
Right. And then in a scene I very much enjoyed, we get another poltergeist moment with Xander basically having a hand reach out of his locker and yank him in. It's just ridiculous. And
I really liked the commentary by the other students in the background. Some girl was like, I am going to get my, extra $10 for being extra. And they're like, there was a hand. He grabbed him from the locker. I was like, oh, okay. Commentary. I loved it. She was a little too loud. Her mic was a little too hot.
And so AJ, is this just like the poltergeist like messing with them, I guess, right? Because like, what is even the purpose? Like they just want to mess shit up, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's this anger. It's just absolute anger that I'm not here anymore. And it's all brought on by the fact that they're doing a Sadie Hawkins dance. Yeah. And
okay, so this
so
makes sense.
It's like, no Sadie Hawkins dance. Probably this doesn't escalate, but it's like,
right.
Okay, the situation is here. I got to get one of these guys to like listen to me. And so he tried it in the hallway with the first couple, and like, well, that didn't work. Let me just grab this guy, like grab whoever, just grab whoever he can find. And clearly, there's Buffy is clearly sensing this, so maybe the poltergeist, no, Buffy is sensing this, so maybe let's go to Buffy's friends now and let's try and say, come help me, please. But again, it's energy that is without real focus. Like it's just lashing out,
and that's how anger is sometimes, right? Like it comes out in those sorts of ways. And I really like that. Obviously, Buffy can relate to like this poltergeist in many ways, despite the fact that she will get into her thoughts on him later. And so of course we get the Scoobies in the library kind of discussing this, trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And Giles kind of figures out it is a poltergeist, but the problem is we don't know what the issues are that he needs resolved to kind of set him free in a way. And so that's going to be the big problem here. And then Sarah, I thought again, because I recognize the janitor. In this next scene, I was like, oh, this is the spice. Oh my God, the teacher and the janitor having an affair. Oh my gosh. Like I was like, this is what we're getting into.
Yeah, this is a little, because I think like the poltergeist is aiming towards people that have like a different or a similar power dynamic to what he had experienced with his teacher back in the was she a teacher too? She was a teacher. So I don't know. I don't really know if like this worked as well, but in this scenario, it's the same scene. It's the same lines recited by different couples. And the janitor is like, you're ashamed that I'm a janitor and you are a teacher, but our love is pure. I was like, I think janitors are respectable people. So I don't know. I feel like you're on the same level, but what do I know?
Yeah, and it gets like really like heavy, like emotionally heavy. I feel like I got to give credit to like everyone who acted these specific lines out, which we get like 3 different couples kind of doing.
Yeah.
It always felt very like, oh my gosh, like my heart,
Yeah, and it's very melodramatic. And it is kind of this on a dime. Like these people are just going about their business. Like, oh, well, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Frank, it's Frank, right? Like she doesn't even know his name.
Yeah.
And like the very next second, she's like, no, our love can never be. It's a fascinating turn on a dime. But yeah, it's I think it just emphasizes the intensity of this relationship that they're living through, even vicariously through these proxies. It's just like it's a fantastic. I want to see it again and again and again, and that's a testament to the writing of this episode that we do hear it so many times and it never gets old.
Yeah. And then just like before, a gun just kind of manifests out of nowhere. And she starts backing up. We get the like, don't walk away from me, bitch line actually said. And so Giles, of course, overhears this. And he, because he's working late in the library, so he follows, sees the janitor shoot the teacher, who falls like off the balcony, careens down onto the ground, and then the actor did such a great job because you could see on his face like he's terrified, but also extremely confused, like he doesn't know what just happened. Giles tackles him, the gun goes flying, and again, I love this like 90s effects where it just kind of like melts away into nothing. And yeah, like the guy is very obviously confused. He has no idea what he did. Like he knew he knows he did it, but he does not understand why he did it. And now we have a woman dead as a result, which I feel bad for that lady because like she really died for like no reason, just because a poltergeist was like pissed off, you know.
Indeed, she's the forgotten victim of this episode.
She really is. She really is. But we have to talk about my fave Drew Lulu. She got herself a garden, you know. Angelus is so kind, so sweet, gets her a garden. And Sarah, she loves this. And her reactions to literally everything breathe life into my soul. I love her so much.
Yeah, she's such a great character. No sight of the puppy. Hopefully the Shih Tzu puppy.
Oh, they ate it long ago.
No. Hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, the gifts keep on giving. She loves flowers. That's a constant. I love her. She's phenomenal.
But
more egging on.
Yeah, Spike is not a fan.
Bag.
Yeah, he's not a fan of the garden. He says, "Big windows, lovely gardens. It'll be perfect when we want the sunlight to kill us."
Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff. It's also a nice way to get a nice new location in there.
Yes.
I'm
happy to be out of this, like the dank dungeon that they were in, like whatever that old warehouse was. I'm happy we're in someplace new. But to Spike's point, it is a little open, you know? Like, I don't know if this is the best for vampires.
It's okay.
But it is great.
I will just bury myself in the dirt, naked, and cover myself and be safe.
I love her so much. I love her so much. And the tension is just like skyrocketing here with like Angelus keeps getting like closer and closer to Drew, and he's poking fun at Spike, which now obviously Sarah on a rewatch plays very differently, knowing that Spike is able to get up and walk around, and we don't know how long he's been able to do that.
Yeah, he's really biding his time to find the perfect moment to pounce back. And it's really just, I guess it's probably twofold. Like, first of all, he has to figure out what his plan is. Second of all, he has to make sure that he feels strong enough to go after Angel. I really do not think this grouping is going to be long for this world, because Spike is over it. He is over being the punching bag. He's over being the butt of the joke. He's over Angel, flirting with Drew openly in front of him and antagonizing him. And he's literally biding his time, waiting for either Angel to die or maybe Angel getting his soul back, which makes me feel that the enemy of my enemy is my ally.
My friend. Yeah, so he's going to help get Angel's soul back. I think
that Spike is going to wind up helping the Scoobies get Angel to be Angel, or at least Angel to die. Like, I think that he's over it, and I don't think that he cares. Like, he wants to find somebody to end this. So I can see him like going over to the good side, so to get Angelus out of the picture.
Well, it's also, I think part of it is he can't do it because that would just put Drew off of him forever. So he knows he can't be the one to do it. But I'm sure you've noticed the last few episodes from his lovely wheelchair prison. Why don't you go and fight the Slayer? Because you should really go and fight the Slayer, because win-win. Either Angelus kills the Slayer, or
the Slayer kills.
Buffy kicked my ass. She can certainly kick your ass because I'm better than you. So it's just go fight her. Kill her.
Well, and it gets him away from Drew too, right? Like, I think it works on so many levels for Spike. I wish we would have. I feel like the front half of the season was much more Spike heavy than the back half has been, because once Angelus comes into the picture, it's like he's like villain numero uno. I would have liked a little bit more Spike, because like obviously I understand his motivation and his intentions, but he is such a delicious villain that I feel like we're not getting enough of,
And this is where the behind the scenes stuff and knowing what's going on at the time also plays into it. Whereas Spike and Drew were really supposed to be like one and done.
Yeah.
From the get-go. And then they were very popular. Like, oh, you know what? They're better villains than the little kid, and plus the little kid's going to get older, and that we don't want to deal with that. So drop them down the well, and boom. But even so, that was it. When they were defeated, and the whole church falls down, and that was supposed to be the end of them. And again, the fans were just like, "No, we like Spike and Drew. You must keep Spike and Drew." Yeah. Well, they've already written the second half.
Right.
They don't have anything for Spike and Drew. So
they didn't really know what to do with Spike at all.
So it was just like, all right, well, let's just sit them out. We'll give them stuff to do in season 3, but but like, because we can't kill them. Okay, great, but we have nothing for them. So it really was just like, all right, he's in a wheelchair. Like,
it's so stupid, but it really they essentially like benched him for the season.
Yeah, but better that than actually kill him, which is what they were going to do. So I will say this show always listened to the fans as best as they could. Sometimes they make the wrong decisions, certainly. But
how did the writers and showrunners hear from the fans? Because it's not like now where you can like angry tweet and like create like a change.org. Were we on like forums? Like how were we getting information out to the people that wrote the show?
I mean, there were certainly the beginnings of the online world were certainly forming. You had your Prodigies and your AOLs. So there was some of that. A lot of letter writing campaigns, certainly.
Letters, okay.
Letter writing campaigns were huge back then. Also, your Comic-Con type stuff. Like there were show devoted fan events in Los Angeles for like. Quantum Leap was on. Quantum Leap had a fan event, and, like anything sci-fi, fantasy, they would just like go to the convention center like on a weekend and say, "Hey, fans, come out. We're going to get 3 of the actors to come by and sign some stuff. We'll show you a screening of something, a blooper reel or something." And people would show up for that, and there was interaction. Like people would like flat out say to the writers who were there, "We love Spike. We love Drew," and they'd hear it. They'd absolutely hear it. And message received. Plus, they had to fill 24 episodes, 25 episodes a season for these shows. And they were writing as they went for a lot of it. They had the season mapped out, but they were always like episode 5 would be airing and they'd be filming episode 9 and writing episode 11. Like, it was a rolling kind of things. So when they took the 3 weeks for rerun, sometimes they needed it because they were like, we haven't shot that one yet. So they could bump things and roll them along. So there was a lot more willingness to switch on the fly because out of just necessities, maybe their budget, they're over budget. So, like this episode, instead of shooting that scene over there in 6 locations, we're just going to have it all be in 2 locations. We got to delete that scene. So there was a lot of that going on. Course correction of fan reaction to the early parts of the season. By the end of the season, they could maybe change the characters, course, change the relationship. They'd be, they're not chipping that. Okay, let's break.
That's so interesting.
They can they can react a lot more like that, and cost cutting measures like they have the bronze. They know they want bands to play there. Like, hey, guess what? This singer's friends with Joss. She used to be in a band called Frente, which did a cover of Bizarre Love Triangle that was like a big hit all over the world. But that band broke up, and now she's just playing with this guy. Put him on the bronze this episode, and there they are. She used to be a star, but she's not. But she's got a band. She's willing to play for free because she wants to promote her new band. Like stuff like that.
Yeah. That all makes so much sense, especially because that's how TV used to be. Was like you'd have a 20-something episode order, and you wouldn't necessarily have everything done. And so you could kind of take feedback, whereas nowadays it's like, no, we did everything. We have 10 episodes. They're done. They're locked. You can't change anything. And, and it takes 3 years to produce a season or 2 years, a long time.
And it certainly fuels a lot of decisions when like people go like, why is Giles always working at the school? Because that's a set they have. Like they don't have to film anything new. They just film them in the library, Was he going to be at the coffee shop? We don't have a coffee shop.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Giles, the Scoobies go to talk to Giles, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on. And Giles I really love this. I love how the show, right? We have our characters, we have our Slayer and Buffy, and we have our Watcher and Giles, and they're like these like superior beings in some ways, right? Buffy obviously with like super strength and the ability to slay vampires and healing and all that stuff. And Giles just has all the history in the background, but they're still not infallible. And Giles is going through some really serious grieving right now, and it's clouding his judgment. And I loved that not only do we get Giles with clouded judgment, someone who is like extremely intelligent and usually very logical and very thorough with everything he thinks and does, we have him showing that he too is a human being who is grieving. And I not only loved that, so he thinks it's Jenny. He thinks the poltergeist is Jenny. And but the Scoobies are like, no, that doesn't really make sense. Why would she be angry? And like the manner in which she died doesn't really track with what's happening. Like, so I love that not only do we have Giles kind of grieving and going through this process and obviously being a little irrational about the poltergeist, but the Scoobies question him. The Scoobies aren't going to just take his word for it. They're like, we know what's going on. Like, I think it's a really, it shows not just the intelligence of the characters in the writing, but also the closeness of the characters that they can recognize that like that's exactly what's happening to him, Sarah. Like it's so intelligent the way they crafted this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and I do like how Giles wasn't like super, I mean, yes and no. He said that, I want you to question me and question my thoughts. I want you to, not take like authority at face value. But then he was like, but I also think I'm right with this. And it's truly because he misses Jenny. He is having a hard time letting go. I think that to have Jenny show up in some capacity, even as a ghost, would be like really nice for him because he misses her. And I think that like when you're grieving, you look for signs that these people are still around. Like my best friend's ex or fiance that passed away, like his police badge number was 38. And like with all of us, like her entire family, her and me, like whenever we see a 38, we're like, oh, hi, Chris. Like, it's just like so warming because like we as humans don't know what's coming in the afterlife. And it's just like, oh, like to just feel connected to that person. And I think that even if Jenny was an evil poltergeist that was fucking around and sending snakes everywhere, like at least it's like a connection to Jenny and like he can still feel her around. And I think it was just like really hopeful thinking. And it was probably hard for him to be like, yes, it is just some random teenager that had an affair with his teacher like 40 years ago.
Well, and yeah, it started that way, right? Like, when they first say, "Hey, I think there's a poltergeist," he's like, "Well, a poltergeist is a spirit who has unfinished business," and I was like, "Okay." And Jenny just died. Like, it wasn't. He didn't go in intending to shoehorn Jenny in, but once he wrapped it around, like, yeah, she has unfinished business, and she died violently, and she died here in the school. So this whole, it's checking boxes A, B, and C. Confirmation bias. I'm not going to look at D through H. And the box is not checking.
It was hopeful thinking. It was totally hopeful thinking. And I really sympathize with Giles and like that he wanted it to be her. Like he wanted it to be Jenny and to see the essence of her. Obviously it was not, and it took a lot of convincing. Willow was really sympathetic towards Giles and patient and kind of like tried to help him work through the thought process. But yeah, eventually he comes around and realizes once it got super crazy and he's like, yeah, this is not Jenny. I was just hoping it was.
Yeah. And again, I think we get really, the Scoobies have leveled up in terms of their like ability to research and problem solve. They immediately go to the computer and look up what, now there have been guns involved like twice. So let's look up school shootings and see if there ever was one. And they find the article about the student teacher relationship. And basically it was a murder suicide where he took her life and then took his own in 1955, which of course is the yearbook that fell out onto the ground in front of Buffy. And so Buffy immediately recognizes the two from her like vision that they had. And I found this part particularly interesting, AJ, that Buffy is very, very tough on the student, calling him a murderer. He needs to pay for it. Like he shouldn't have ever killed her. And it's so like she's obviously pulling from the angel stuff, but it is like very, very harsh words from Buffy.
Yeah, but like you said, it's one of the things that I love about Buffy as a show, and just the way it does take these, you know, when it started off, they were just like the pitch for the show was, high school students think that any problem, the smallest problem, is the end of the world. Well, at this school, it is. It could be, and so yeah, she gave it up to her older boyfriend, and then he woke up the next morning and was a completely different person and didn't want to be with her anymore. Like that is a relatable to high school students. Unfortunately, it happens a lot in the real world.
Yeah.
And anybody who's been in that situation would be like, he's got to die, and he's an. Now, on top of that, you add to it the fact he has been murdering people and things.
Yeah.
His warnings and everything. So, yeah, someone who is in a relationship and like, just changes on a dime and like kills people, like, no. And it makes total sense for Buffy to feel that way, just as we were feeling Giles and how we understood what his point of view was, having just lost somebody. We understand Buffy's anger, and it's perfectly valid, if not misplaced.
Yeah. It just like makes me so sad that she like is already so jaded from like such, I mean, obviously a very, very traumatic experience. And she's really harsh about it. And the other connection they obviously make is that the kind of the reason the poltergeist is coming back, they think, is because it was a Sadie Hawkins dance that was happening at the same time that this all took place. And then we get like truly one of the more horrifying scenes that we've seen on the show. Sarah, it depends, I guess, your mileage may vary on how much you enjoy snakes.
Yeah.
But everyone's eating a spaghetti for lunch. Cordelia is complaining about Sadie Hawkins dances and how she says, we're boycotting this. This is terrible. And the spaghetti turns into snakes and one bites Cordelia in the face.
It is rough. It's pretty rough. I do love snakes, though. I talk about this so much, but I'm a big fan of snakes. Yesterday, I was at the Indiana State Fair, and they had a reptile house, and I got to pet a snake. He was so cute.
What was his name? Did he have a name?
I didn't ask.
Oh.
I didn't ask. There's so many people at the fair. You really have to get in and out if you're going to pet the snake. Yeah. But it was like this little like red and black one, adorable. But Adam, literally, he couldn't even look at it. He like ran out of the place. He's like, I am going straight out. So it really is like a mileage may vary thing. I think snakes are cute, but I know I'm very alone on that journey.
I don't know. AJ, how do you feel about snakes?
I mean, herpetology aside, no, I am not not a snake, spider, creepy crawly person at all. I mean, I'm not like terrified. If the garter snake is in our backyard and crawling up the porch, I'm the one who has to deal with it. If the spider's there, I'm the one who has to deal with it. But like, so I'm not afraid, but I'm not a fan. I don't want them in my house. No, certainly not. And I certainly don't want them on my lunch tray at all.
That's where I land.
And what's great about this, see, what's confusing, I think, and it's certainly open for debate, is that the snakes don't go away. Like, the guns disappear, the hand disappears. But I see this as just a demonstration that the battery is charging more and more. There's more power now. And so there's more staying power for the things that the poltergeist is causing to have happen. That's my take on it.
Yeah, so it's getting stronger. He's having more power, and the whole point is that he wants somebody to listen to him. He wants the attention so that he can tell a story because he's feeling a little guilty. Wants people to know the truth, and if we if we get snakes on the lunch tables, then somebody's going to have to pay. It seems a little like unconnected, but I understand that it was involved. But
when you just think about him being an angry teenage boy, I think it kind of makes more sense where you're just like, of course he'd throw snakes at people and be like, deal with this now. Like, I'm mad. So I don't know, but this is where we get another interesting scene with Principal Snyder. Again, just always looking at him. I just know, I knew he was up to no good. And they're him and the police chief are trying to like figure out how they're gonna sell this, right? Oh, a prank gone wrong. They can't really sell that. Okay, well, just say the sewers get backed up. And we find out that the reason Snyder was like given this job is because they thought he would be able to spin all these like crazy stories about all the nonsense that happens on the Hellmouth. And the mayor is like, and so he has to like, again, the sewer line backed up. It goes like 100 snakes to be in the cafeteria suddenly. Like, it's all very silly. Obviously, we're like suspending our disbelief to a certain amount, right, AJ? Because like, we had like 50 witnesses to this.
But he's not saying the snakes didn't happen. So it's not like he's rewriting history. The snakes are there. He's just inventing a reason that would be plausible enough. One of the things that I think over the first 2 seasons people would criticize the show is saying how ridiculous. And I've heard you guys say it, like, how does Joyce not know? How does the principal not know? How do the students not know what's going on here? And I think we're starting to, in the world building of the show, now that they kind of know what they're doing, they're kind of like building that out and saying, okay, he does know. Some people certainly know and are intentionally spreading disinformation, saying, no, it was a peaceful protest, just a peaceful protest. But
it was a scavenger hunt. It was this, it was that.
But definitely a spin is going on. And if you lived there on the Hellmouth and all these horrible things were happening, and you maybe just be grasping at straws going, please tell me I don't live on a Hellmouth, because that's impossible, because there's no such thing as a Hellmouth, and there's no such thing as vampires, there's no such things as werewolves, because in the real world, these things don't exist. You're willing to buy a whole lot of stories. You just want someone to tell me what I can hold on to. And I think we're starting to see where maybe the show is going to play with that a little bit more. And I think that's it starts with this episode. Like, and that's why this episode is so pivotal. Again, 6 weeks we're waiting, and they come back with this, where it's like everything that happens in this episode is like, we heard you, we're course correcting, and we got a finale coming up for you. Don't you worry.
Okay, so it seems as though I think we speculated this, Jess, like this Principal Snyder is a government adjacent type of thing, or at least like some sort of agency that covers up a la, like, I don't know, Men in Black or something. Like we saw this AJ mentioned earlier about the Invisible Girl, and then we see like the Invisible Girl going to a school with other invisible children. So, and that was government or agency run. Like this is like the same department. Like the
city council is the one who appointed Snyder. So seemingly the government is in the know that like strange happenings happen in Sunnydale or whatever. It's the Hellmouth.
So this is in the classified documents that Trump stole and brought to Mar-a-Lago, right? Like this is part of the things that like top secret documents that we can't let the people know. Perfect. I understand completely now.
And because Giles is again kind of compromised emotionally, the Scoobies, namely Willow, is able to like find a solution. And the time for like reasoning with the poltergeist is over. We're now going to perform an exorcism. And so Willow has said they need a Mangus tripod. So basically it's like there are hot spots where like, okay, you need to form a triangle. And so like, we have where the teacher died, like on the balcony. And we have like the room that Buffy was in, that the class, the classroom where they were like holding hands or whatever. Like we need to all stand in those hot spots and then do a chant and you have to light a candle, a black candle specifically. And we need and at midnight, and that's what you need to do.
But what about the smelly thing?
Oh yeah, they have to have a smelly thing. Scapulas.
A scalpula.
I think it's similar. AJ, correct me if I'm wrong. It feels similar to like garlic against vampires. Like it's like something against ghosts.
Yeah, it's some sort of ward to protect you from evil. And, we've learned in this world, there are vampires and garlic can work to some extent. And yes, we're going to play with that and say there's always an odor for every occasion. So let's just try it out.
Yeah, and so she didn't have whatever, a scapula, I guess. She didn't have what she needed, but she used sulfur.
She called it a scapula, which is a bone in the body, which is not the right term for it. But again, I think that's clever. That's clever writing because she mispronounces it because she's so this is her first time doing this. She doesn't know what she's doing. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but she could use a sulfur because she obviously doesn't have just like extra shoulders laying around.
Yeah.
So everyone has their marching orders. Everyone is supposed to like go to where they're supposed to stand, triangulate the forces, do the chanting, et cetera, et cetera. And like as soon as they get in the school though, like all the doors just like go crashing shut. And like, that's terrifying, Sarah. Like it's one thing to have an enemy. It's another thing to have an invisible enemy. Like you can't see them. Like, and they're messing with your mind. Like that's horrifying.
There's a lot of invisible enemies with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It seems every week we have another invisible someone that we're trying to fight. But yeah, like this guy is certainly kind of like a bigger boss to beat in terms of fighting because he has like all of his little poltergeist abilities and he's possessing, and Buffy is Buffy's like very brave. She knows what she has to do. I think that does she figure out that she has to like kind of relate to the ghost at this point?
Yes, but not yet, because we're back to Drew Lulu wanting to sleep naked in the dirt like the animals do.
Yeah, I don't know how relevant this is to the...
No, it's very relevant because this is what gets Angel or Angelus back to the school, because Drew Lulu has another one of her little visions. And she says, oh, there's a gate. It's opening. It's black. It wants her. And so she's the one who tells Angelus, like, okay, it's time for you to go. You have to, she's dancing with death. You have to go take care of this now. And AJ, this was interesting because for all of Drew Lulu's powers of like visions and all that, it doesn't seem like she knows that like apparently vampires are susceptible to poltergeists.
Well, I think it's just, she doesn't understand her visions. She just kind of like puts them out there in whatever interpretation they have. But, the fact that she says dance is like great because like, we know that, there's a Sadie Hawkins dance. That's the catalyst. So she says dance, she starts dancing. I actually would have liked it if she didn't say it and just started dancing. It would have been more subtle a thing, but quibbles. She's not the smartest vampire in the world.
No. She's horrible.
She's not. She's
a special princess.
She sees the world in her own way, and it might not necessarily be the way that the world is. And
she's an Aquarius. Okay, we all know it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love too, like we're getting, because we know this is like not a family friendly show, but it's certainly not like R-rated and like HBO and everything. But I love that we get Angelus like kind of like sliding down Drusilla being like, oh, I should stick close to home. You could use another pair of hands. And it's like, what are you going to be doing down there in front of Spike, Angelus? My God.
Really? He's pruning her rose bush.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, much gardening to be had. And then we get, so it's time now for the exorcism, and Giles is still working in the library. Willow bumps into him, and like again, like he he wants them to leave, and she's like, "Oh, you should leave." Like again, neither one of them is going to leave. We all know that, and we get some like really scary shit happening. I think it's Willow starts to get sucked down by basically quicksand. Poor Cordelia's snake bites on her face, turns into like some massive, scary looking scar. What happens? Buffy is listening to the bop shibop song happening in the I don't know if it's like a music room or what exactly it is.
It looks like a band room, yeah.
Yeah, music room of some sort.
She's getting another vision of the teacher and the student kind of, having it out. I don't know, like having a fight, or they're dancing. It's like she knows she wants to end it, but on and on. But we see it's like really scary too, AJ, because we see like visions of him after everything happened with the teacher, where he has the gun and he's like raising it to his head, and it's like really scary. I don't know.
Yeah. And every time we see the story, we learn a little bit more, and it goes a little bit further, which is kind of cool. Also, this is where we were doing a lot of homages to horror films. It's in the scary stuff where Cordelia at the mirror that's straight out of Poltergeist. There's a character in Poltergeist who thinks he's got a cut on his face, and he ends up peeling his own skin off and everything. It's this horrible thing, but it's in a mirror, and it's like all right, that's the Poltergeist nod, excellent. And I think Willow's is kind of there was a Canadian horror film called The Gate. It's kind of related to that in a way. So there's a lot of homage on Buffy, and this was a perfect opportunity to do that sort of thing for those two characters and put them in danger that us olds recognize.
I think my favorite of these is Giles and Willow, because Giles has to help Willow out of like the quicksand, and I just love her saying she's not mean. Like, it's not Jenny. She would not do this. Like, this is too mean to be her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that softened Giles, and he's like, I know you're right. And because it's true, Jenny would never.
Yeah. So they're lighting all of the candles. And I do like what you said earlier, Sarah, about I shall confront and expel all evil. I shall totally confront and expel all evil.
Yeah. Charisma Carpenter's, just the way that she says all of her lines is just always so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So they light all the candles. They're all and then like suddenly, Buffy's gets blown out by some wind, and all of them are out. And then there's like, Sarah, I know you're going to be triggered. There's a swarm. I know you hate swarms.
I hate swarms. Yeah. Yeah. It really is awful.
Are they supposed to be bees or flies? I don't know if we really can tell. Wasps?
They say it's wasps.
I hate wasps and bees.
And it's a total direct lift from The Shining, where not only they're doing the camera down the hallway, but the swarm comes around the side, just like the blood comes around the side in the end of The Shining. So it's a total homage to The Shining there. So
yeah, and that little known show, Better Call Saul, there was an ant swarm, and in an episode, and there's
over the ice cream, right?
And I wanted to end it all. It was awful.
I can see that.
Yeah, but nobody else has seen that show. It's just so uncommon.
Yeah, it's so no one even talks about it.
This is my new game, AJ, because I started watching Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad this a couple months ago. So, and obviously I'm like more than 10 years late. So I'm just like, yeah, nobody's ever heard of this show. And it drives Jessica crazy.
Well, I feel this way about Buffy, so I'm glad you guys are covering.
Yeah. Little known show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
The Scoobies reconvene at Buffy's house, and I love Cordelia just questioning, if the school shuts down, do we just get to graduate automatically?
I sure hope so.
And so they're trying to figure out like what exactly is up with this poltergeist. Like, what does he want? And Giles is like, well, he obviously is like wants to resolve some sort of issues. And Buffy just knows, like, she has a connection to this guy. Like, he has a connection to her. He's the one who's kind of pinpointing her and her group of friends. And she says he wants forgiveness. And it's like, it's really, really sad, because to Giles's point, like, he's just reliving this act, like this murder, the murder suicide over and over and over. And it's just like, it feels to me, AJ, like almost like punishment for himself to have to relive that over. Like he's punishing himself for what he did.
Yeah, in the quest for some sort of forgiveness, he's stuck in the same spot. Which, and I think it's Xander who says he can't be forgiven, Buffy. He's dead. Like, like he's dead. Like there's nothing. He can't be forgiven. He can't do anything. Like so, it's it's hell on the Hellmouth, right?
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, I think you probably appreciated this just as much as I did when Buffy is like going on and on about, oh, he can't be forgiven. He killed the person he loved the most and blah, blah, blah. And Cordelia just goes, over-identify much?
Yeah. Cordelia is so much fun.
She really knows how to like kind of bring levity to any heavy scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Buffy, again, she has a connection with this guy and she just hears him say, I need you. She has like the 1955 Sadie Hawkins dance flyer. And so she leaves and she's able to like, it's like he parts the Red Sea for her. She gets to walk right through the swarm, no problem.
Yeah, she's wanted inside. He needs her inside. So of course he's going to let her inside, but not anybody else. So, when the Scoobies show up like 10 seconds later, it's like, oh, we can't get in.
Yeah. And Willow correctly deduces that like this is dangerous for Buffy because he keeps reenacting the same scene. So if she goes there, like no matter which part she's playing, she's going to end up dead. And so they all end up going back to the school and gosh, these scenes were so good. And like, I kind of understand why there are Angel fans now, just because like, obviously the actors are like 10 out of 10 perfection. So I understand like you really do, even though we've heard these lines before, we've seen this scene play out twice already in the same episode, because you have the history of Angel in the same scene. It's like so good, Sarah. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like sexual tension, there's a lot of lust, there's longing, there's missing. I think that the real thing or the real topic of debate really was Angel there at all? The real Angel. Did he come through at all? We know that the judge said that there is no human in him, but we know that like the poltergeist infiltrated him. So I think the answer is Angel was there in some way, right?
I didn't think so, but that was mainly because they're literally reciting line for line, like the exact scene. Mm-hmm. So it felt to me like it was just the poltergeist had invaded Angelus and made him say those things.
But like afterwards, I don't know. I just like kind of feel like
I would say I hear what you're saying, and again, valid interpretation, because who the heck knows? My take on it, is that Buffy needed this just as much as the guy did, the shooter.
Yeah.
And so they shared the catharsis there. Like she was able to, in a way, not forgive Angel, but forgive herself.
Yes.
For like she was blaming herself, like I gave up my virginity to this guy. This is my fault in some way. And now she's able to, through this catharsis, oh, it's not my fault. It's all him.
Yeah. And
so she's able to get just as much out of this as our high school shooter is. And I think the fact that we've heard the dialogue three times at this point, and not once before they got into their bodies did I realize what they were doing there. And to hear them say the lines and to gender flip it on top of it, it's so rewarding. And just like, this is where the show for me just went from, a pretty good show to like top tier must watch television. It's like the writing, Marty Noxon just knocked it out of the park with this. Like, this is so good.
And it also is, it's fascinating on so many levels. Like you said, the gender swapping, the fact that Buffy is the person she loathes. She said he deserved to die. Like, he doesn't deserve to forgiveness. And she's in that role of saying you don't just get to love someone and leave them. And she feels how he felt. And I think also, Sarah, safe to say we could point out that they were both kind of in problematic relationships, right? We're like, we have a student-teacher relationship, certainly an age disparity, a power dynamic that is unhealthy and imbalanced. And I think you could say the same thing about Angel, who is 200 years older than Buffy.
Right.
And, and let alone he's a vampire, she's a slayer, blah, blah, blah. It's the fact that she is now having to relate to the guy that she says is a monster and doesn't deserve forgiveness is so perfect. And especially, I loved the way they did it, the way they intercut the scenes. They spliced it all together, where it's sometimes where, even halfway through a line, we're switching from 1955 to present time. It was so effective, the way that they did these scenes, because this really felt, I don't know, I felt cathartic watching it. It felt like these were things Buffy has been needing to say and hasn't been able to, especially because she's speaking to Angelus, not Angel. And so it's like, is he even listening? Is he even in there?
Yeah, is he there?
Yeah. And so to have him have to play the role of the teacher who's more emotional and actually like has a soul and gives a shit, I think is cathartic for her. And I don't know, when she shot Angel, I was like, holy shit, like, what does this mean? Like, can he die? Like, can he die from a bullet? Like, how does this even work? But it didn't matter because it was so emotional, and it just felt like it was picture perfect the way they did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was really captivating to watch.
And this was the episode, quite frankly, they as history of the show says, if you believe a bunch of the writers, and I've interviewed a couple of the writers over the years, but this was the episode where they said, yeah, he can get a spinoff, because this is the first time they saw David Boreanaz and go, he can carry a show. It was that scene right there where he switched on the dime and delivered those lines. They said, yes, we're going to do a spinoff with Angel. They decided right then and there.
I think at the very least, having Angelus this season really, like we are able to see David Boreanaz's acting chops, which I don't think that he was able to showcase when he was just Angel. So
because he was giving like cryptic one-liners, like brooding in the corner.
I mean, I liked it. I did not mind. Like like I've said, I like my vampires broody and moody, and I truly did not mind Angelus being a little corner creeper.
So Buffy goes back to the music room, and again she is being the teenage boy from 1955, putting the record on, putting the song on, like getting the gun. She looks like she's about to just like sob. And she looks in the mirror and she's him. It's like very trippy. But this is when Angel, and this is where it gets a little confusing, and maybe I should have watched it like a couple more times to really understand what's going on. But AJ, maybe you can explain this a little bit to me. So Buffy looks like she's about to again use the gun on herself. Angelus comes in because he didn't die, because he can't be killed by a bullet. And he stops her, and like, does that how does this work? Is this like rewriting the story?
Well, it is and it isn't. But basically, every time he tried to replay this, it would end with the guy he was in shooting whoever the teacher was in. So the only way to break the cycle is to shoot someone who can't die from a bullet, which is Angel. So the spirit of the teacher hasn't left Angel yet. And
right.
So he is stopping him from killing himself. Finally changing his ending, which is great, because when he jumped into her and the teacher jumped into Angelus, it temporarily gave him back a soul, which allowed him to hear and respond in a way where Buffy could get her ending changed. So he changed the ending for her, and because they picked a vampire, she's now able to say, okay, no, don't shoot yourself. Let's end the cycle here. We can we can both move on now. Finally, we can have our happy ending ish. Yeah, we can have our closure. It may not be a happy ending, but we can have our closure. Like, I never stopped loving you. It's all good.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say.
Forgive you. I forgive you. Like, it's her talking to him, and it's what we, I think, want Buffy to hear. But it's not. It's not coming from Angel.
Well, that's the thing. We can almost imagine that because this is new dialogue, because this didn't actually happen in the 1955 real timeline, we can imagine this is Angel saying that I never stopped loving you. I loved you with my last breath. Like, we can imagine it's Angel, even though it's
But it's the teacher. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And okay, Sarah, we like to talk about the kisses on the show. How do we feel about the Angel Buffy kiss in this moment?
It seems as though the intimacy director has come in and fixed some issues, because that was a good kiss.
It was. And you know why, though? You know why I think it was? Because it was passion, but it also was like sadness too. Like, there was just more than one emotion wrapped up in that kiss.
Yes. Longing, missing, desperation. Yeah.
All great words.
I mean, it was, I got the dictionary out. I know some words. It really worked for me. We make fun of, particularly Sarah Michelle Gellar, not fully convinced that she's a good kisser quite yet, but definitely an improvement from what we've seen previously.
Mm-hmm. And then we see like the poltergeist kind of get lifted away, or, it's broken. They fixed everything. The exorcism is complete, and they have to, separate from each other very quickly. And I liked this, AJ, because it's like, it feels like we've been kind of waiting for this, and without having Angel back, without him getting his soul, this was a really great way to get that kind of cathartic, like, closure in a way, without having to be like, and now he has his soul back, the doopy doopy doo.
Right, without having to backtrack and do some sort of, we don't know where we're going. Like, erase, backspace. No, it's a great way to help, at least from Buffy's point of view. She can now move on a little bit. She can move on, and she can heal a little bit, where that was never going to happen with Angelus tormenting her the way that he was. And of course, there's as uplifting and heartwarming as it is, 2 seconds later, it's like, it's still the sadness of the realization that, but that wasn't Angel, that was Angelus, and he's still there. And of course, the comedy of patooey, blah.
Yeah.
Get rid of the kiss.
Kissing, kissing the cooties out.
Yeah. Well, and Buffy does say in the next scene, like, she doesn't understand why the teacher forgave him. Like, she doesn't feel like she can forgive Angelus for everything that he's done, which, understandable, Sarah. He's killed like so many people.
Right.
He's a murderer.
I love that. She still doesn't understand how she could forgive him, but she doesn't blame herself anymore. And that's what we needed for Buffy to function.
Yeah, that was a lot of things that she was holding on to. So I'm glad that she let go of that at least.
Yeah. And Angelus comes back and he does he just feels grimy and he has to take a bath. Which it was just kind of funny watching him like scrub so fiercely, exfoliating as one does. And he's like, we need a really bad kill. It's like he's like an addict. He's like, I need to kill something right now to get this stank off of me, basically.
He needs the fix.
And Dralula was like, great, let's go find a toddler. Perfect. Let's do it. Fun.
At least it's not puppies.
So they leave to go do that. They leave Spike, and Spike gets up from the wheelchair, baby. He's back.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what kind of hell he wreaks. I feel like it's been long enough. Get him out of the chair. I'm very excited to see what he does.
Mm-hmm. What a fun way to end this episode. And I know we're heading into next week. Like I know people don't love the next episode. It's fine. Whatever.
I love the next episode.
You don't even know that you love the next episode.
Oh, I know. I know. I love the next episode.
Oh, I have a feeling that next week's podcast is going to give me an ulcer.
Yeah, it's just going to be just me like really effing around.
Look, next week's episode it's not as bad as people make it out to be. It really is just the fact that there's so much momentum.
Is it better or worse than the pack, AJ? Better or worse than the pack? Oh God, he's taking a long time.
The pack is so early on. Like season 1 is so bad. It's one of. I mean, it's still one of probably the 10 worst episodes of this show. But if it had aired like 3 weeks ago, it wouldn't feel. Like I said, the momentum of we got Angel and Buffy and that scene, and it was like Spike is back, and we kind of resolved Jenny a little bit with Giles as he's going to start healing too, and all this excitement, and it's like, and next week has none of it.
Yeah.
And we're building towards a 2-part finale that is so amazing. It's just like, I've waited 6 weeks. I've watched this. Yes, the momentum is here. And I'm sorry, what? What am I watching? Yeah.
Well, that's next week's problem. We'll talk about Go Fish next week. But we did get an email from Tara about this episode. She also mentioned she wanted to mention about Passion, that Jenny's sketch wasn't great because Angelus was in a hurry. It takes time to get the flowers perfect, chill the champagne, light all those candles, drag the body from the school. He's got good time management skills, but still, he's just one guy.
Yeah, I do think that he is one of the better artists that we've seen. So,
better than Joey Potter, definitely. And then Tara has feedback about this episode as well. And she says this is an underrated episode of season 2. And in her top 3 of the season, I love a good ghost story. And the last scene with Buffy and Angel is perfect. Buffy is drowning in her guilt over Angel losing his soul, and having those few minutes where she can hear him forgive her is just what she needed. Sarah and David killed it, which totally agree. She also mentioned the fun fact that you had, AJ, about David Boreanaz's acting in this episode being what convinced everyone to give him his own show. And she specifically noted David didn't overact playing a female as other men would have at that time, which is a really good point I had not thought about. He doesn't overplay it. He plays it like just perfectly.
No, in fact, what I think he's doing, he's playing it as Angel as opposed to Angelus. So there's still a contrast there. If he was Angel playing that scene, being possessed, and it was earlier in the season, I think he would have femmed it up a little bit, and it wouldn't it would have just rang hollow. Here it's like, oh, I've got a soul in me now. I'll just go back to playing Angel, and it works.
Yeah, totally.
Tara also says 12-year-old me was screaming, "I knew it!" when Spike got out of his wheelchair.
We should have known it. We should have.
I just wasn't. I guess I wasn't thinking that much about like the Spike and Drew and Angelus of it all, because I was more focused on the Angelus of it than the Spike and Drew part.
Yeah.
Which is probably what they intended Absolutely. And what they thought would happen. Tara also says one last bad episode. Go Fish was a story originally meant for early season 2. And then the 2-part finale, Becoming Part 2 and season 5 are the most emotional finales to me. It was a long summer waiting for season 3 to start. Ooh, a little bit of a teaser. So luckily we won't have to wait that long. And as a quick reminder, in case people have forgotten, we are going to be covering Becoming parts 1 and 2 in just one podcast. So we won't have to wait that long because we'll have our Becoming podcast, then we have our season wrap up, and then we get to dive right into the premiere of season 3. So no waiting a summer for us. But that's our episode. AJ, anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up today? Anything more about I Only Have Eyes for You, which is a great title, by the way, because that is the song that is playing in the episode, which I really loved.
Yeah, no, I very thankful you guys invited me to come on. It's I love talking about this show. It's near and dear to my heart. Like I said, it was like a show my wife and I watched together from season 2 on, first run. And like I said, my son's name is Xander. So like we love the Buffy. And yeah, there's some great episode. It's such a hard tightrope to walk here because I'm not going to spoil you, but it's like there's so much more.
Everyone says that, yeah.
It's just like I said, there's like 4 things in this episode I want to talk about, but I can't talk about because you don't know why I want to talk about them.
AJ, are you surprised that neither Sarah nor myself were spoiled on the fact that Angel was a vampire?
I was very surprised by that, actually. I was very surprised by that.
Your talent.
Yeah. Kudos to everyone for not blowing it. Like, I'm so nervous. Like, am I going to say something? But, yeah. No, I mean, I enjoyed being here, and I hope you'll have me back.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Please.
All right. Well, next week is Go Fish. So we'll be back for season 2, episode 20.
I'm not coming back for that one.
Oh, no. Horribly rude.
No. AJ, anything else you want to plug, or where can people find you if they want to hear more?
Oh, my friend Kantan Svenskard and I, we have a podcast called Felonious Pundits. We are in the middle of a rewatch for me and a first-time watch for him of Criminal Minds. We're just about to wrap up season 4 of 17. So we'll be doing this at the end of time.
Like, we thought Buffy was long. Jesus Christ.
I'm going to go as long as he wants to because, like I said, I've seen it's the show that my wife and I put on when we go to bed because we need noise. So it's just always on. So it's just every so often we wake up and like, and a lot of Buffy crossover with Criminal Minds.
Oh,
so
fun.
Nicholas Brendan comes on for a couple of seasons. Juliet Landau, Drusilla, she has a guest starring role in one. Like there's a lot of crossover, so it's kind of fun to always see the Buffy people on that show. But Felonious Pundits, catch it where you catch all your podcasts. If you're interested in that show, we have a good time with it.
Incredible. Well, Sarah and I are talking Buffy and Felicity as usual. You can also find me on Talking Shit, talking about Schitt's Creek, and Sarah's over on Whirlwind Podcasts. They have Shameless coverage, Pretty Little Liars coverage, Pushing Daisies coverage, much to Lindy's chagrin. So check out all of that, and we'll be back next week with Go Fish. Until then, everyone, here endeth the lesson.
Just ask. Shit 90 shows taught me.
Shit 90 Shows Taught Me was not filmed before a live studio audience.